It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio setup better be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Attention all renters. Attention all tenants. Let's talk about tenants' rights and issues in leases here. There is a lot to consider when moving into a new apartment. Now, there are a whole bunch of, I don't know if you've ever looked at that lease agreement, right? Maybe some of you are just signing papers and just throwing it in. But there's a whole bunch of clauses in there. Clause F, Clause G. Our next guest is here to make sure you know about your rights as a renter in this city. Our real pleasure to welcome Arnold Bennett onto the program from the Housing Hotline, a tenants' rights group. Arnold, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
So let me ask you, Arnold, before we get to clauses, just the current market situation in Montreal for renters, how would you describe it?
Horrendously tight. Prices, apart from the fact that there's a lot of very few places available. There's a lot of gouging going on, especially between old tenants and new tenants moving in, with landlords trying to get hundreds of dollars increases in rent, people not knowing their rights, landlords trying to squeeze people out who are there already by invoking various clauses that they might not have the right to invoke. And then there's inflation on top of it, which means that there are legitimate rent increases that people haven't seen in a long time.
And as you just so succinctly put it, in a situation like that, are you seeing a situation where landlords know they can easily find someone that doesn't know their rights so they can skip over those who know their rights?
That's the way it's always happened. And it's one of the problems, yeah.
Okay, so let's try and make sure everyone listening knows their rights. Let's talk about some clauses in these leases. Okay, I have some notes here on a clause G and a clause F, and I don't know what either of these are or what they do. Why don't you break it down for us?
Well, look, the lease contains all kinds of things apart from indicating the rent and the period and so on. There's all kinds of printed clauses that have to be there that come from the Quebec government and that state a lot of people's rights in which people don't bother to read. You know, that landlords can't tell them that they're responsible for all the repairs, for example. That landlords can't demand deposits in advance on, except for the first month's rent. It says all this clearly in the lease, and there's a lot of people never bother to read it, so they don't know. That's number one. Then you've got certain appendices inside the lease that have to be filled out by the landlord. And one of them, an extremely important one, concerns the lowest rent paid by the previous tenant in the last 12 months. That's the famous Clause G. And often that isn't filled out, or it could be filled out with a false amount, or it could be filled out and indicate a big increase, and the tenant doesn't know that they have the right to go to the tribunal in order to have the rent revised if it's raised too much. And there are all kinds of procedures involved in that for different situations, so people should be paying very close attention to that, because a lot of people don't.
Yeah, and if a landlord can just flat out lie in that box and give you the wrong rent, the wrong previous rent, I mean, how does the tenant even find out?
Sometimes they do find out, and then they've got 2 months from the time they discover the fraud. Frankly, that doesn't happen too often. That the landlord marks a false amount, because the easiest thing for the landlord is simply to leave it blank, and there's no penalty for that except that the tenant has 2 months from the beginning of the lease to apply to the tribunal. If it is filled out and filled out truthfully, the tenant only has 10 days from the time the lease is signed. So it's extremely important to pay attention to the rules here, because they vary and they can have huge consequences. If you miss a deadline on this and you've accepted a $200 increase, too bad for you. That's the situation.
We're with Arnold Bennett from the Housing Hotline. Okay, so Arnold, so Clause G, if you see it blank, you should insist to the landlord, hey, fill this out.
Here's the problem. If you haven't signed the lease, and you start making a fuss about Clause G, you're not the tenant yet. The landlord can say, I don't want you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you got to be very quiet about it.
Oh, geez.
Now,
Okay.
what
Yeah.
has changed that could be very interesting is the City of Montreal has adopted a bylaw which requires landlords to register their rents at City Hall.
Mm-hmm.
So then people are going to be able to check what the previous rents were, and they'll be able to take action without having to go through trying to snoop around and find out what the previous tenant was saying, or ultimately maybe even just taking a guess, going to the tribunal and subpoenaing the landlord's records when the case comes up. That's how people have worked up to now. This rental register idea has been around for years. No Quebec government has ever agreed to do it, even the PQ back when they used to be progressive. But in Ontario, they've had it for years. Go figure.
Go figure. In Ontario, which is to the right of us, they've had that registry. Now, Arnold, one of the reasons you're on today is we actually had someone reach out to us about another clause in these leases, Clause F. And that has to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, with buildings that are less than 5 years old. Tell me what this is all about.
Well, if a building is under 5 years old, it's not under rent control. That means the landlord can raise the rent whatever they want during that 5-year period, and you can't refuse the increase. If you refuse it, you have to leave. However, if Clause F is not filled out by the landlord, and the building is less than 5 years old, and the landlord asks for an unacceptable increase, the tenant can refuse. Why? Because the landlord loses his right by failing to fill that clause out.
Okay, gotcha. So that's
all right, but I'll have to tell you, this is extremely rare.
Mm-hmm. Because there's not that many new developments?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
This doesn't apply to renovated properties. It applies to brand new buildings, or say a building burns down and they rebuild it. That's a new building.
Okay, so Arnold, as you see it right now, and especially at this time of year, right? It's April 21st, the traditional moving day coming up on July 1st. What are the top things that tenants, renters should be thinking about at this time of year?
Okay, number one, avoid the bait and switch. That's where the landlord says, "Oh, I can't show you the apartment you want to rent right now, but I'm going to show you one that's just like it." And of course, it never is.
Uh-huh.
Okay. If you want it, secondly, if you're going to agree on certain things that the landlord is supposed to do that aren't standard, that is, the landlord, it doesn't have to be in the lease that the landlord has to ensure the place is in good livable condition, because that's the law. Okay? But if you want to have a paint job, if you want to have a special type of renovation done, if you want to have non-standard things that aren't required by law but are subject to agreement, you'd better have that agreement in writing, because a verbal agreement, unwitnessed, is not going to stand up.
Gotcha. In writing, yeah.
Number three, what we already discussed about making sure you don't miss your deadline about applying to fix the rent as a new tenant if there's a reason to do that. That is, if the rent seems that it's too high. Ideally, if you can get a copy of the previous tenant's lease or the outgoing tenant's lease, that's what the tenant groups all over the city have recommended for years.
Yeah, that's right. And I remember making sure that the next tenant at the place I was living in NDG got my lease just so they could see that. Arnold, just to wrap up here, I know there's I think a proposed legislation that would prevent landlords from banning pets. Can we talk about how big of an issue this is?
It's
people
a big
with pets?
issue.
Yeah.
Now that we've got the tight market, landlords are trying to find ways to get people out. So I've got one building in NDG where everybody's been calling me, where the new landlord who took over sent everybody notices, "Get rid of your dog or I'll get rid of you."
Oh, my God.
And
Can they do that? Can they do that?
Well, in some cases they could. They wouldn't get an eviction, but they would get an order to get rid of the dog. But in this particular case, number one, these people had a toleration that had existed for several years from the previous landlady. And not only did they have this toleration, which the courts will recognize based on the case law that's built up over the years, but the previous landlady was nice enough after they went and told her what was happening to write them a letter saying, "I tolerated pets for years." So if this thing goes to court, these tenants will pull out this letter, plus the fact of the toleration, and they should be okay. But in other cases where it's very recent that this clause was put into the lease, sure, landlords can invoke the clause if they decide they don't like you. And if they pick on you rather than the 20 other people in the building who have dogs, do you have a defense because they're discriminating against you? Maybe. Depends on the judge. It's too vague.
All right. Well, listen, Arnold, I want to thank you for coming on. We're out of time here. Thank you for letting us pick your brain this morning, and we'll have you back real soon because I know our listeners care about these tenants issues. Appreciate it.
Glad to do it.
Arnold Bennett from the Housing Hotline Tenants' Rights Group.